because that's not like a basic sort of need that, I mean, lots of college is not really useful. So anyway, here, Civilian Climate Corps. Um, the plan proposes that $10 billion be allocated for the program, which the White House has stated will create somewhere between 10,000 to 20,000 jobs. Wait, what is this? Civilian Conservation Corps? What is it? Okay, work relief program. Yeah, I don't actually believe in just necessarily work relief just for the sake of work. What I support is, again, I support basic income. I support basic income, and if people can't have a job, then too bad. That's the way I see it. Um, so yeah. So I was just basically I was looking at this because I was looking at Joe Biden and sort of trying to figure out, have a sort of comprehensive idea of what he's about. And so overall, I quite like him. I think Republicans have good critiques of leftists, but the point is that the actual Democratic Party policies are have nothing to do with the kind of stuff that the Republicans complain about, right? None of that sort of weird wokey stuff. It's just policies. And so what does Biden suggest as policies? Well, he supports sending aid to Central American countries, and since the U.S. actually fucked up those countries before, well, I think it makes complete sense, even more sense to send aid to those countries. That way, limit, again, like they said, the root cause of migration. That is a great policy. I absolutely support that. He supported halting.
Did you just say the conservatives have good critiques?
They have good critiques.
LOL.
Yeah, no, they do have good critiques of the sort of weird lefty stuff. But it's not the Democratic Party, but it's more like sort of lefty weirdness. Yeah, there is lots of that. They're right about that. That's the only thing they're right about. And basically, they focus on that to divert away the attention away from the fact that they have absolutely terrible policies. Um, so yeah. Um, Look, I got to give them a bone, and it's true they do criticize. Well, it kind of is. I mean, the leftist stuff is also what I'm targeting. There are lots of examples. Like suggesting replacing a market economy with like socialism or like government mandated worker co-ops or something like that. When seeing systemic racism even when there isn't systemic racism, seeing like wanting to perpetuate racialism in the form of like reverse discrimination like through affirmative action and stuff like that. Um, the idea that not really there's a legacy of systemic racism. There's what there is persistent average interracial economic inequality. Um, so there is that. It's not systemic racism. It's something else. There you could say systematic instances of racism in certain like areas such as like we see that there's employment discrimination. I mean, there's been studies where like you send an application, if it has a sort of like African American sounding name, you're less likely to get a reply. Harsher convictions for Black people, stuff like that. So, but it's not even the system; it's more like individuals that kind of tend to systematically discriminate. I wouldn't really consider systemic racism to be the most appropriate term for it. I mean, there are instances, there are frequent systematic, not systemic. It's not the system. Systematic in the sense that it's sort of perpetually reoccurring instances of racism that lead to this. It's not the system per se that's racist anymore. Um, it's a legacy of past systemic racism and ongoing moderate. No, because the systemic is like a wrong word. It's like saying that we've got a completely deadly pandemic when actually it's like saying that COVID like will kill everybody. No, it doesn't. It kills quite a few people, but it doesn't kill most people. So if you say that COVID is 100% lethal, that is just wrong. That's like wrong. So I'm just saying that systemic racism is basically the wrong words to describe what is happening. Yeah, okay. So then, and for police shootings, for instance, if you adjust to the level of murder rates, well, black people actually get shot less than white people. And so, I mean, the point is that obviously there are more murders, there are 4 times more murders per capita among black people. So obviously the police is going to be more involved in black communities. So obviously there's going to be more encounters, which means that also sometimes there's going to be shootings. And so obviously one would expect there to be more police fatalities among Black people. There's been studies. Apparently, something like 80% of Black people want to see the same or greater levels of police presence as currently. Only 20% would like to see reduction, and that's actually the same amount as other races. Like literally every 80% of all racial groups want to have the same amount of police or more. Um, so again, defund the police. That's lefty weirdness. No, if it's themselves that have a culture, because they are killing themselves, so it's just their own culture, which is like that. And this is where the paradox is. At the same time, they're saying that you've got to respect each person's culture, and that cultures are and that culture. Yeah, again, yikes. This is the point. You're also one of these weird lefty people that doesn't understand that, like, literally, probably mostly environment, perhaps a little bit of genetics. The point is that again, it's a legacy of systemic racism. It might also be their own culture. They just might have of their own accord. In Africa, their murder rates are pretty high too. Um, and so, you could say it's also a legacy of colonialism, whatever. We don't know. We don't know. How can we know? We can't know. That's not yikes. Okay, okay. Like this is what I'm saying. Yep. Okay. Sabalo Rabalo, thank you. Hi, thanks for coming. Maybe you could give me a little support here. I'm again arguing against the weird leftiness of saying that, like, when you've got disparities in racial and races, like, then that is automatically systemic racism. I'm saying no. Maybe if you got a different culture, maybe it's because, like, the whole point is that you're supposed to value different cultures. Maybe some cultures, except that they are themselves the colonists. They are themselves because they're different. Like, this is what precisely weirdo leftists say, is that cultures are inherently different and we should let cultures stay different. And so obviously there might be differences in, like, violence between cultures. So if you want to perpetuate differences between cultures according to your racialist sort of ideas, then you should also acknowledge that no, it isn't. Like, literally, it would be cultural appropriation for them to become less violent. It would be like appropriating the lesser violence of European culture. Like, if you're against cultural appropriation, like if you say it's wrong to like wear dreadlocks or something as a white person, then you should say that the whole point is they want to keep cultures distinct. They recognize that they're yeah, where that's also colonialism and brutal colonialism and stuff. So like like literally if you're saying that there are different cultures and you want to perpetuate different cultures, and I'm not in favor of that, but the point is I oppose this sort of multiculturalism. But the point is, if you support multiculturalism, then you have to recognize that there are different cultures, which means that there also might be different levels of violence between cultures, right? Because that's an aspect of the culture. So, like, that your propensity to violence is a part of your culture. So if you support having separate cultures, well, then you should also support there being more violence, and and you should support and you should support you know yeah, but in a way that's almost a case for saying that they should have ethnically cleansed the native population in other continents too. So, like, it's maybe not the best argument either. um, um well, like, yeah, we've got less violence after having ethnically cleansed the native population. It's an indication that maybe that was actually a good thing. I'm just saying, not saying I support that. Absolutely, of course it's horrible. Of course it's horrible. But, like, literally, if you're going to be, like, making these sort of weird racialists. And the point is that basically these weird leftists, they think they're anti-racist, and actually they are racist. They want to preserve separate cultures, and then they fail to recognize that some cultures might end up to, like, different economic outcomes, different outcomes in terms of criminality, in terms of wealth. Obviously, because that those are things that are influenced by cultures. That the amount of which you decide to work hard for school, that's influenced by your culture. The extent to which you might be willing to go into GAN, that's influenced by your culture. Well, the point is that like also you're talking about how Mexico is violent, but Mexico is mostly colonist, right? It's like Mexico is mostly a country of colonists themselves. Um, so like it's not just a question of like removing the the previous people or not. Like there's lots of violence in places where most people are. Yeah, but if you look at the guns per capita in the most violent countries, it's way, way, way lower than in like the USA. So it's not just guns per capita. It's mostly other things. Like if you look at in Latin America, the highest murder rates are in Latin America. Yeah, so I mean, it's been affected by the United States policies for sure. It's affected by like the war on drugs, which then has led to the rise of the drug cartels. So obviously, that violence is largely caused by that. Currently, absolutely, absolutely. But it's just there's this racialism in the leftist thinking, and this is what they get right. The Republicans, they see this weird racialism. Luckily, the Democratic Party isn't actually starting to implement a bunch of weird policies based on this racialism. Well, they have a bit, but at least it's sort of relatively limited. And this is what I'm saying is that the actual Democratic Party has good policies. And again, it's not none of the sort of none of the sort of none of this sort of weird none of this racialism. When they stopped redlining, at that point, it's when they stopped redlining. Um, when they stopped widespread redlining, there's probably like a little bit still going on, but like okay, so in as much as there is still going on, my impression is that was eliminated. Yeah, systemic racism. Yeah, then it's more like just instances of racism. There's also lots of anti-white racism at this point in specific instances, like kids at school getting bullied by black people when they're in black majority schools. I mean, that can be pretty traumatic. And no, of course, no, that's not racism. He's just an evil, the poor little white kid is just an evil white colonial oppressor. This is the crazy racism of the leftism, and the Republicans are completely right to decry that. The problem is that they do that to divert the attention away from the fact that they have just nothing but terrible problems. Okay, so that you could. But if it's environment, it could be themselves. It's not racism. It's auto racism. This is what I'm saying about culture. Some cultures are inherently more violent. So literally, would be even if it's the environment, it's like literally letting them. Yeah, I'm not gonna really respond to that. But the whole point is that if you acknowledge it has probably still a little bit, but it's overall like what I mean is that the overwhelming majority of like disparate racial disparities, interracial disparities, are not caused by persistent systemic racism. They're caused by a legacy of systemic racism, of the fact that just poor people in general tend to stay poor, and there tends to be more violence among poorer communities, violence among poorer communities. And since there has been systemic racism in the past, then black people are still poor. No, if anything, they're underpoliced. There's absolutely no overpolicing. They're probably, if anything, underpoliced, considering that the police shootings are actually less per. No, not yikes. Again, 80% of black people want as much. 80% of black people want as much policing, policing, or more. Like literally, you are the yikes. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Weird lefty craziness. Okay, this is the weird lefty craziness that I'm talking about, and they are right about that. Weird lefty craziness. Um, So so let's see. Again, it's just focusing on race. Stop focusing on race. Just focus on getting people out of poverty. Unless, yep, yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yep. This is why I'm saying weird leftiness. Weird leftiness. Most people don't want that. Yep, yep. Now they don't solve everything, but they are very useful. They are very useful. Again, basic income, basic income, basic income. You need to solve poverty. So poverty gets solved through basic income. Um, yep. But you can't do again. Okay, anti-capitalism. So this is the other weird leftiness. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. This is why, and then right wingers come and they say, "Oh, you're a commie because you like basic income," and this is, yeah, it is weird. It is weird. I mean, the concern, this kind of stuff, the anti-capitalism, the anti-police, the anti, the racialism. This is not. This is weird. Um, so, yeah, it's not failing. I mean, like literally, it's not failing. It's not failing. I mean, look. Standards of living, standards of living are higher than they've ever been. Standards of living are higher than they've ever been. They're higher than they've ever been in any communist country, in any socialist country, whatever. They're doing better than they would in another system. Okay. Yeah, I know, which is why. Yeah, again, basic income, basic income. Like literally, basic income. Um, okay, he recognized Armenian genocide. That's good. Notice that I agree with all like Biden's things on like funding Central America. Well, it's a good start. Like it already eliminates the bottom part of the inequality. Like you eliminate all severe poverty. You eliminate severe poverty, right? Like literally, you eliminate severe poverty with UBI. And I support a maximum an income cap. So then you solve the other side with the income cap and wealth cap. Um, so there you got it. Like it's not like it's not, you don't need to get rid of capitalism. Just get rid of the inequality just by literally putting a limit on it. Um, let's see, defense. Okay. If that is what you call it, I call myself an L-ist based on, you can see the L there in my name. Um, all right, let's see. What do you say? Biden. I don't like this. Biden has said the U.S. needs to get tough on China and build a united front of U.S. allies and partners to confront China's abusive behaviors and human rights violations. Well, yeah. I mean, I hate the Chinese government, but I don't support policies that will harm the Chinese people. Um, so this is the problem with China. Is it's true you must not let the Chinese government get too powerful, but at the same time we do want the Chinese people to keep experiencing uh, as much economic growth as possible. Um, and this is kind of the problem with that kind of rhetoric, I think. Oh yeah, withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. So I'm really happy about that. Um, then he recognized Armenian genocide. Um, I mean, you can say I'm a basic liberal. Yeah, but apparently there's no basic liberals on Twitch. And like basic liberal does not support UBI. Might support UBI. Definitely does not support an income and wealth cap. So like literally, there's like no. So like this is the point that like Biden has done lots of good stuff. Did I tell you? Like, what did I see? He rejoined the Paris Accords. He stopped Keystone. He stopped drilling in Alaska Completely support that. He's been signing all this stuff for building more infrastructure. I support that. Support this cessation of wall building, sending funds to Central America to solve the root cause of migration. He's withdrawing from Afghanistan. Um, I think Biden's pretty good, but what I really like, he's also said he wanted a $15 minimum wage, although it hasn't actually come to pass. But I actually don't support minimum wage if you can have a basic income. Um, so that is that. Uh, but of course, I'm anti-nationalist, right? So he's not bad within the nationalistic paradigm. Of course, but even within the nationalistic paradigm, of course, what really needs to be done is um, a basic income and a basic income plus wealth in how do you say basic wealth, basic income, basic wealth, maximum income, maximum wealth. That is really what needs to be done. Um, that is not your basic liberal. Okay, wait. Biden administration announced the U.S. was ending support for the Saudi-led bombing campaign in Yemen. President Biden, his first visit to the State Department as president, said this war has to end, and the conflict has created a humanitarian and strategic catastrophe. Okay, so what what is that? I don't know. Am I speaking too fast? In any case, no, can't you read? Because the average liberal does not support basic income, basic wealth, maximum income, maximum wealth. So that is why. Okay, approval. Let's see. Biden's approval ratings have been more steady but more polarized. Oh yeah, that's funny. Like Republicans hate Biden. That's weird because Biden's just like it's sort of average. Um, he's just he's not nothing incredible. Like I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Um, yeah, and it's true. It's a turnaround from the way. So he oversaw extraordinary expansions of the federal government's role in Americans' lives during their respective presidencies, like Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson. That's a stark turnabout from the way Biden was used by some during the Democratic primaries. Um, but yeah, I don't necessarily care so much about, again, I don't want more government intervention. What I want is just basic income, maximum income. I think that's much more important. And yeah, I, I kind of like, I like, yeah, it's true that he is kind of original and delighting people, including Noam Chomsky. So I like that. I'm actually very, yeah, but they're not socialist policies because it's not weird. The point is that what I mean weird is that they're wrong, they're harmful. My thing is not wrong, it's not harmful. So yeah, they're sure they'll call it socialism, but it's not socialism because socialism is about the so-called workers owning the means of production, which inevitably ends up being the government owning everything and basically steering and planning the economy. Um, so that is in practice socialism. My thing is not that. You retain private enterprise and markets, and so it's and like limited regulation. So that is it's still the same system as we got now. Just you add a basic income, you take the system you got now and just slap onto it the basic income and the income cap. That that is that is it. I What? No, the opposite. What do you mean? I don't think that people should be in control of the wealthy elite. No, private enterprise. Like literally, everybody just gets to have private enterprise. Like literally, yeah, there's no wealthy elite because there's an income and wealth cap. Nope, there's an income and wealth cap. There's no wealthy, just middle class people. No poor because there's a basic income. No rich people. I'm thinking about this globally, right? I don't care about countries. I hate countries. So I support a UBI at $800 a month, $10,000 a year, approximately, and a cap at only 5 times that, so $4,000 a month, $50,000 a year after taxes, um, and a wealth cap of $2 million. Um, and then also any corporations that get bigger than say $2 million in assets also have to go public, and then they get owned by shareholders who of course will also be subjected to these income caps, which means that they also would be just middle class people. And of course, income includes like income on things like returns on investments, and things like inheritance, anything. It includes all income, in kind gifts, and all that kind of stuff. All income is capped, and wealth. It's all that's the way I see it. So that there's no more rich people. There's not even any upper middle class people at that point. Um, so like it's literally just everybody owning just their a few shares of a company, and so companies, all big corporations, would just be owned by a bunch of regular people owning a few shares, and then you could just have shareholder democracy. Just have shareholders get to vote on what each company, the companies that you have shares for, they just vote for it. CEOs get just paid like middle class salary. They can get fired by the shareholders. That's the way I see it. It's just populist, egalitarian capitalism. That is what I want, and that is unique, and it's different from socialism. It's different from anarchism. It's not socialism, but obviously, like to people who've been drinking the elitist Kool-Aid, the Kool-Aid of the oligarchs, obviously they're going to think that is socialism, but that is wrong. And the difference again is that the sort of weird leftists, when I say it's weird, it's not just that it's unusual, it's that it's not part of the status quo. It's that literally is not beneficial, in my opinion. And so that's what I mean by that. So okay, let's see. Yeah, so he imposed sanctions on Myanmar here. He expressed interest in re-engaging with Iran on the Iran nuclear deal. So I like that. Whoa, okay, so he said he ordered retaliatory airstrikes on buildings in Syria that the Department of Defense said were used by Iranian-backed militias to carry out rocket attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq. Okay, the operation was the first known use of military force by the Biden administration. The attacks prompted condemnation from many Democratic members of Congress. Tim Kaine questioned the administration's legal justification for acting without coming to Congress. Okay, yeah. Okay, promised to repair strained relationship with Europe. Okay, Russian government urged new U.S. administration to take a more constructive approach in talks over the extension of the new 2010 New START Treaty, the sole remaining agreement limiting the number of U.S. and Russian long-range nuclear warheads. In Biden's first telephone call as president with Russian President Vladimir Putin on January 26, 2021, Biden and Putin agreed to extend the New START Treaty, which is set to expire in February 2021, by an additional 5 years. Biden and his administration condemned human rights violations by the Russian authorities, calling for the release of a detained dissident and anti-corruption activist Alexei Navalny as right, blah, blah, blah. So okay, so we know about all this, so it's good. So they're being tough on that kind of Russian oppression. Examination reports the Russian government offered bounties to kill U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Okay, so basically just sort of, okay, I think that's not so interesting. So he met Putin in Geneva. Okay. That would be cool. If I'd stayed in Geneva, I would have seen him. Alrighty. I don't know if you got more questions at this point. I think we sort of have an idea of Biden. I think this is let's see, what did he say? Oh yeah, and the lifting on the transgender military service. So I support that. Putting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. I support that. I think he's done cool stuff, but it's still not the okay, advocate for further gun regulations, such as restored ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. That sounds good too. Basically, all that's really needed at this point is basic income, basic wealth, maximum income, maximum wealth. Okay.